Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Susanna from the Frollo community, and we're joined this evening with Deepa Graham, the divorce coach, on how to take back your power and to give ourselves a little bit more self-care and to start dipping our toe into dating and looking at tools and techniques that we can use to do so. So what we're going to do, Deepa will have a lovely little conversation with us. I will keep the chat group open if anybody wants to ask any questions, and there'll be time for question and answers a little bit later. Okay, so I'll hand over to you, Deepa.
Thank you, Susanna. Hi, I'm Deepa Graham. I'm a breakup and divorce coach. I'm also a solicitor and a single parent to two children. So I thought I'd first of all introduce myself, a little bit about my story, and then go into the importance of self-care, talk through a couple of useful tools and techniques to help you move forward, and then also towards the end, dipping your toes into dating and also meeting somebody new. And as Susanna said, if you've got any questions, please feel free to sort of pop them in the chat, and I'll try my best to answer them. But I'll just to be aware that I won't be sort of giving any legal advice at all. It is mainly sort of coaching advice and techniques there. So a bit about my story. So basically, I have been divorced for sort of nearly 3 years now, separated for about five. Um, and I had quite a difficult sort of breakup with my ex at the time, which, I really sort of struggled with. For me, it kind of came out of the blue because we've been together quite a while. We were going through a major sort of house renovation, living in a static caravan in the garden. So there was a lot going on. And then on top of that, I found out sort of by mistake that um, my husband wanted to be with somebody else and not me just before a weekend away for our son's birthday, which was not ideal at all. So I found it extremely difficult to kind of, you know, sort of deal with the reality of how my life had changed like a flick of a switch. It was almost like I felt as though on paper I had the ideal life. We were both professionals in London. We had a good lifestyle. We had au pairs which lived in, which enabled us to have date nights and, you know, socialize, if you like. And then all of a sudden that stopped when we moved into the caravan because of lack of space. And I think that took a toll on our marriage. The finances started creeping up because we had quite a large house build, which kind of spiraled out of control a little bit, I'd say, financially. And I think that put a toll on the marriage as well. But it just became really difficult because we'd gone from having this ideal sort of lifestyle and what I thought at the time was, a good marriage, but clearly it wasn't reciprocated, which I found really hard to deal with when I had these young children. They were 8 and 5 at the time, and I was trying to hold it together to try and be strong in front of them, not trying to let anything on that anything had changed. I was hoping it was kind of a blip in the system. Perhaps he was going through a midlife crisis. It will be okay tomorrow, or I don't know what I was thinking, but I couldn't think. And I think that's where I found it really hard because mentally I was like a zombie. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I just wasn't hungry. I had no desire to do anything. I didn't want to take a day off work, so I continued to go into work. I found this really difficult because my ex-husband worked opposite me, and the person he wanted to leave me for was also working in the same building as he was. So it was as though things couldn't really get any worse. And to try and process the changes in our lifestyle was really difficult because um, I had to kind of think about our future and also being a single parent. I was brought up by my mum as a single parent, and I know how hard it was for her to kind of deal with me and my sisters on her own. So I really didn't want to be in this position that I found myself in, but then I didn't know how to kind of move forward with my life. It was just I just felt like everything my bubble had been burst and he was just carrying on with his life and his new life, if you like. But for me, it was really hard. I was really stuck emotionally. And we had to live under the same roof for, a couple of months whilst we were trying to work things out because of the finances spiraling because of the house. We couldn't afford to pay for the mortgage and for him to live somewhere. Um, we eventually worked something out and he did move out, but then we shared a family car and I was seeing this other lady in the passenger seat of my car. It was just, I was still going through the shock, but his life had moved on really quickly and the children had met this lady and I was still in denial. I hadn't told family. I didn't know what to do. I was just, crying myself to sleep whilst I could see him lying there sleeping. And I'm thinking, how are you sleeping? I'm not sleeping. How are you able to sleep? It was just, yeah, it was really, really difficult. Um, but then I came to the point where I had to kind of take control of my life again. I couldn't continue the way I was. I'd lost so much weight. I was, irritable, ratty, snapping at the children. It wasn't their fault, but it was just everything around me. I had to try and keep it together, but I was struggling to. Um, I then managed to get hold of my life, and I thought, I need to do this for them. I was looking at them and I thought, no, I need to try and fight this head on as much as I can. So we had to go through courts to try and sort of retrieve the proceeds of the house that we'd had to build to then sell. Um, and that was court for a couple of years. Court proceedings were delayed due to COVID and all the rest of it, so it just took such a long time. Me and the children moved to a different area. He was also supposed to follow, then decided not to, which was also quite hard because I didn't get any spare time at all. I've got no family that live around me. And he went from seeing the children every other weekend to kind of once a month, which was really, really hard, and it's still the same. So finding time for me has been very difficult over the years. But as they've grown older, they're 13 and 10 now, it has become a lot easier now because they are more self-sufficient, and I don't have to do sort of as much for them, if you like. So that kind of enabled me to want to help people who were like myself going through what I went through, because I spoke to a counselor at the time because I don't think there were divorce coaches around then. I hadn't heard of any, to be honest. At the time, it was all just sort of therapy or counseling. So I went through counseling, but I found that quite hard because I had, family members I could talk to, and I felt as though the counselor, all they were doing was kind of listening, but I didn't need someone to listen. I just needed someone to help fix me or kind of, help me or just tell me it's going to be okay, I guess. But I didn't kind of get the support I needed there. So this year I decided to become an accredited breakup and divorce coach, to sort of help people like I was a few years ago to move forward, because I know how emotionally, physically draining, a separation, a divorce can be, especially when you're a sole parent and carer for two children and, working and doing all the rest of it, trying to move forward with your life. Um, so that's a bit about my story and why I've become a breakup and divorce coach. Um, and I wanted to now talk about the importance of self-care. As I'd mentioned, I really struggled with the self-care because at the time when, you're under so much strain and it feels, divorce is, the second most stressful thing you'll go through in your life after the death of a loved one. So it's grief, you're going through the loss of somebody, loss of the life you had, a loss of that person being there. And all of a sudden you're, sole decider for all these big things. You haven't got someone to bounce ideas off and all the rest of it. So it is quite, quite a traumatic experience to go through. And also, to understand that the healing journey takes time and it's different for everybody. Some people it's quicker than others, and some, for many years are still stuck in that mode mentally and haven't moved on. Um, so it is about, self-preservation and self-care and kind of taking back your power, if you like. But it starts with self-care. If you're empty, you can't then care for your children how you need to care for them and give them what they need. And also for yourself, the energy to kind of move forward with the challenges that lie ahead, because there will be challenges. Inevitably, your life has changed. There will be changes, and you need to adapt to those changes as well. Um, so it's about sort of having some exercise, whether, if you don't enjoy going to the gym, it isn't about sort of just, going to the gym or doing a class, but, going for walks. I used to go on numerous walks with sort of my headphones in and listen to podcasts. I think at the time there wasn't that much around, like 5-ish years ago. I feel like there's a lot more available now. I think I listened to like Jay Shetty. They were kind of quite inspiring little short stories for me to sort of keep me hanging in there, if you like. But I know Frollo have, a great podcast, and there are various sort of podcasts available now, or even going for a run. Healthy eating is also really important. I mean, as much as you might not feel like eating, or I remember I'd forget to eat lunch, and I'm like, wow, it's 4 o'clock. I forgot to eat. It's taking care of yourself and making sure that you do, you're sleeping well, you're eating well. I had to force myself to eat something, make myself, even though I couldn't stomach it, I didn't have that appetite. But you need to have, that energy to keep going, to kind of nourish your body as well. So it all has a knock-on effect, um, if you like. And also, yeah, like I said, like the sleep, that is quite hard, because sometimes I find when you're really busy with work during the day, you've got the children, once they go to bed, that's the time you have for yourself, isn't it? That short span of time. But you might distract yourself. You might be doing other things, but when you stop is when you go to bed. And that's what I found really hard, because I felt like, oh, I'm okay today. And I'll get to bed and I'm like, you're alone with your thoughts. The tears start streaming down the pillow. You're like, oh, and you're just awake. Um, but it's trying to, I found when I started listening to sort of positive affirmations and words, it was an app, I can't remember which one it was now, but it kind of helped me sort of calm down and try and fall asleep. Um, so I think it really helps to try and find something that will help relax you in the evening. I found, the baths were really good. I had like a lavender bubble bath, which kind of helped calm me down, if you like, just to get you in that sleepy mode. So, yeah, adequate sleep, food, mindfulness, meditation, if that is something that, you find relaxes you. It's just finding something that, you enjoy doing, and, can help you mentally as well. And also, if you need therapy, counseling, coaching as well. I offer one-to-one coaching sessions, so, feel free to get in touch with me. And also setting boundaries. I think that's also related to, quite a large part of self-care, especially if you can be. I've always been a bit of a people pleaser. I've also always found it really difficult to say no, even if it's breaking my own back. I kind of just keep saying yes to everything, because I feel as though I owe everybody everything, and it's knowing when to prioritize your needs. And I think that's really important when you're going through, a separation, because you're going through so much. So it's taking care of yourself and learning to say no to things that you aren't able to sort of do. So yeah, putting in boundaries in place, and hobbies and sort of leisure time as well. I think that's really important to, find things that you enjoy doing. Although I appreciate being a single parent, there's not a lot of free time. But if you are fortunate where you do have free time, if your child is, with your ex for sort of some time, perhaps you can, use that time for yourself, um, discover new interests that you might have now, or try new things that you think, I've always wanted to do that. I remember I tried ice skating. I'm terrible at it, but I wanted to give it a go. I was trying to step out of my comfort zone and just try new things because I was rediscovering myself, if you like. I felt like I'd because I feel like sometimes when you're in a long-term relationship, you can lose yourself sometimes. I remember I used to love Man United. I used to watch all the football matches. I don't know if it's to do with David Beckham, but I was really into football. And I remember when I met my ex, he hated football. So I went from watching all the Man United matches, all the World Cup and Euro matches, to then knowing, oh, he doesn't like it. We won't watch it. And then like the 10, 11 years went, and I hadn't watched any football matches. I didn't know any what was going on with football, but, it's kind of just for an example, you can kind of lose yourself, and sometimes you don't realize you're doing it, and it's only when I was on my own, I was like, "I don't even know what I enjoy doing anymore." I used to do things that he used to like, or would do things that the kids wanna do, but what do I enjoy doing? So you're rediscovering your interests again, and I'd gone back to football again, so that's great. Don't support Man United anymore, but my son's really into football, so that's really nice. We have that common grounding. So I got him into that. So it's finding what you enjoy doing as well, with the time that you have. And so, yeah, so it's an opportunity for rediscovery and get to know yourself and what you enjoy doing. Are there any questions? Can't see the chat box. I don't think there's any questions. No, that's
Nothing yet,
fine.
hon.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
that's fine. I'll carry on. Um, so I wanted to go through some tools and techniques which I find really help my clients. The first one being, um, so we call it rose tinted glasses. So when you're in a relationship and it ends, you focus on those bad points for a little while. But then these other thoughts start creeping in of all the things you kind of miss and the things you reminisce, the way they used to do this or the things you used to do together. But it's so easy to forget the bad or the not so good things and the reason why it ended. And I found, you know, clients that I speak to really do struggle with this. And even myself, I remember, especially like this time of year, Christmas, right? You might think, oh God, yeah, we used to buy the tree together, or we'd do this together, or we bought this decoration together. But it's important not to forget the reasons why you are no longer together. So, what I always suggest is write down a list of all the things that you didn't like about your relationship or specifically about, your ex. Um, and I'd suggest you do this in your phone. And notes is great because whenever you're feeling like those thoughts are creeping in, you can just get your phone and remind yourself of the things that were not so good. um, and that will really help you. So every time and that will help you move forward and not become stuck in the past. Because that's another danger of having the reminiscing thoughts and all the rest of it because you're just stuck in that place. You're not moving further forward. But in order to move further forward, you need to remind yourself why it didn't work, why they weren't the right person for you, or, vice versa. Perhaps it just you grew apart, and it happens. But then it's a chance to then, move forward and meet somebody who is right for you. Um, So I think that could be, that is a good tool to, make a note of all those not so great things and keep it on your phone. So that's one sort of technique, I'd say. And also gaining clarity. So that's the second one. What I mean by this is when you're going through a breakup or a separation, there might be things that you need further clarification on. By this, I mean you might need to sort out sort of joint finances. You might need to, work out what you're going to do with your marital home. You might need to, and if you need to then, sell that, what can you afford in terms of rental or working? Are you going to be able to, afford your outgoings, how is that gonna work? Is there anything you need to look further on now your situation's changed? We don't always wanna look at these things, and there are things that we usually ignore and think, "Oh, it will sort itself out." But unfortunately, it's still in your mind. You know it's something you need to do, and it's like sometimes if you have a credit card bill, you don't want to open it because you'd rather not see it, but you need to have a look and know. So it's another way of sort of gaining clarity by, writing down things that you need further clarity on. Um, it might be that you need to seek legal advice, you know, about your marital home or your actual situation or your pension, or, you need to start a divorce application, like how to go about that. So, making a note and a list of all the things that you need to gain clarity on will reduce overwhelm and stress in your mind. Because when you write things down, sometimes it can be easier than keeping it all stored in your head. So that's the second technique. And the third one I'd say is really important is a breakup and support network. So when you break up with somebody, obviously it's quite a big thing, and you're going to feel like you need, some support. And it's important to have friends and family around you who can check in on you, or you can go to, if you're feeling sad or have any worries. And they might even be able to, assist with sort of childcare if they're close by, or if there's anything they can do to help. It's good to be able to lean on people that are like a support network. Um, that could be sort of legal advisors, financial advisors, friends, family, an exercise buddy who'll go for walks with you. I remember having a lady who lived in my street and would just go for walks, and it was great. She was like my walking buddy. And also a divorce coach like myself can also help you. Um, but also ensure that whoever is in your breakup and support network, they are a positive influence on you rather than a hindrance. I think that's also really important as well for you to ensure that you have the right people around you that you can go to for that support. So I'd say that was a really important sort of team to have in place. Um, and also, it can take some time to adjust. As it's raw, there's no quick fixes as such. And it's all a natural part of the healing process. But those initial stages, it's quite important that you have that support around you um, to lean on. So I've talked about self-care, writing classes, breakup support, and gaining clarity. So they're four important tools and techniques, I'd say, that are quite important, especially when you're going through a separation, or a divorce, or a change in those circumstances. And what did I have next on my list? Let's see. I did make a note. So I am dipping your toes into dating or meeting someone new. So this can be particularly daunting, dating someone new, especially if you've been in a long-term relationship like I had been, and you weren't not very familiar with online dating. um, but what I'd say is, take your time. Don't rush that process. Even if your ex has moved on really quickly and you feel as though, well, they've moved on, I want to move on. Ensure it's right for you to move on, and make sure you've healed properly, because you could meet the person that is perfect for you. But if you're not in that mind frame and you haven't quite healed, it's not going to work out. So, ensure that you're ready to move on before you move on, and don't feel those pressures off anyone or compare yourself to anybody else, because everyone's healing journey is very, very different. Um, and it might be a good idea for you to just have a look at what it is you want in somebody going forward. You might look at things in your last relationship and think, that didn't really work for me. Or, certain traits, sorry, what did I say? traits that you want in somebody. For example, I wanted someone who had really good banter because my ex wasn't funny. And I just felt as though I really want someone who can make me laugh. That'd be really nice. So if you make a list of things that that you want and don't want, like non-negotiables as well, that kind of helps, whether it's someone who doesn't smoke, that could be a non-negotiable for you. Um, so just have an idea of what it is you're looking for. And, there's a lot of lovely people on the apps as well. So when you are ready to go out there and date, just kind of take your time and enjoy it. And if you're creating a profile and don't know where to start, which I was in that same boat, um, I'd suggest just having a few photos of yourself, a clear headshot, and then like a full length photo as well. That helps, and recent pictures. There's nothing like being catfished. I was catfished. It's not fun. um, and also, write some information about yourself. And I'd say when I started dating, when I was ready and I set up my own profile, I had a friend who said, "Don't put you have children on there." I was like, "Why?" She said, "Oh, just don't put it on there." And I thought, okay. And when I mentioned it at a date and you see people's faces drop, or it changes things. I thought, right, I'm definitely putting on there I've got children. So I'd say honesty is the best policy from the outset. Surprises are never fun. So, but obviously go with what you feel is comfortable for you and works well for you. Um, and also letting someone new into your life. It's quite an adjustment. I'd say also trust your gut. The amount of times I didn't trust my gut, and you just ignore these little things, and it's right in the end. You're like, oh, I should have just listened to my gut. It's so frustrating, isn't it? How our gut can pick up or sense things, but in our mind, we're like, nah, it's fine. It'll be fine. You ignore it and ignore it. But yeah, so I'd say definitely trust your gut. Um, and most of all, have fun. It's an opportunity to just, get dressed up, go out. I used to get a babysitter, so every 2 weeks I'd get a babysitter for 2 hours, a local sort of, she was about 19. So I'd get her in for a couple of nights, sorry, a couple of hours every 2 weeks just to get out, which I found really helped myself, because I think it's difficult as a single parent when you don't have that time to kind of think about you. Just to be able to just get dressed up and just go out was such a novelty. Um, so it's so important to make that time for yourself. If you've got family members who can help, even better. But schedule it in just to have you time, because it's so important to have that time when you don't feel like you're just a parent. Which I found it really helped me mentally as well, to just feel a little bit free. So yeah, and it'll increase your confidence. Once you meet people, it'll increase your confidence to, get yourself out there, get talking to people, enjoy the company. I'd usually suggest to meet in a public place. First couple of meets, I've had friends who haven't, and it hasn't turned out great experiences for them. So I'd always suggest, somewhere public. I usually have a phone call first. So I'd sort of message, have a phone call. You always have to have a phone call. It depends how you feel, but this is how I did it. Have a phone call, see how the phone call went, and then yeah, meet up somewhere like a pub for a drink, and then just sort of go from there. But just most of all, just enjoy it, um, and yeah, enjoy that time for yourself. And also, what I forgot to say was, when you're rediscovering yourself again, and I found when I'd sort of separated, I had all this spare time, and all my friends were sort of parents who had children. And when I didn't have my children, I found it really difficult to kind of, okay, what do I do now? It's just me. So Bumble Friends is a really good app, along with Frollo app. I know you guys do meetups as well, which is great. but the Bumble Friends is like BFF, and you can search for people in your area, like where you live. And I've met quite a few good friends from that app, which is really, really handy as well. So you might find that you also make sort of new connections, new friends, which, you know, is great for you as well to have adult company. And also I forgot to mention, sort of with self-care, if you have friends locally, but you can't go out, if you can get them to come to you, so at least when the children are in bed, you've got some adult company as well, because I know how lonely it can get as a single parent as well. So yeah, I think they're my tips for sort of, you know, progressing after a separation or a divorce. I hope it's been helpful. Does anybody have any questions?
There was something in the chat box
Oh,
earlier. Somebody wrote, "Thank you very much for sharing your story." I think it's always nice, isn't it? I say nice, geez, but it's always nice, particularly at the Frollo community, where it's always nice to hear somebody else's story
yeah.
because you can, you know, you get so consumed with how awful it was for you. So
No,
it's always quite
definitely.
nice. I don't know. That's quite a nice. It's a nice bonding moment, isn't it? It's like, oh
Yes.
yeah, I felt that awful too. Thanks.
No,
Oh,
definitely. So I hope it's, helped some of you, but if anybody's got any questions, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll answer the best I can, or if you want any tips on anything. It's really hard because I'm trying to give general advice, but obviously everyone's situation is so different, so I've tried to
yeah.
keep it as general as I could. Um, but if anyone's got any questions, then yeah, feel free to kind of ask. Don't be shy.
Yeah. Don't be shy. No need to be shy here. There isn't any current questions, so maybe they're feeling very shy this evening.
That's fine.
There's no current questions at the moment. What we've put as well, where the meetup is, if anybody does want to have any coaching sessions or reach out to Deepa, the Instagram handle and everything is all on the meetup. Or you can contact Deepa through Frollo community as well. Or you could directly message myself in the Frollo community, Susanna, and I can then send Deepa's information over to you as well if you want that.
Perfect. But if anybody wants me to, I was a guest on a podcast recently to sort of give guidance on sort of helping with sort of children whose parents have gone through separation, divorce. So if you want me to do any future sessions, then yeah, just let me know.
Oh no, that would be really great. I'll pass on. Was that on the Frollo podcast or something else, Deepa?
No, it was something else. I was a guest on a different sort of podcast.
Oh,
Yeah.
fabulous. And then I'll always I can pass on your information over to Joe then. And then they can look into that to sort out a podcast on Frollo too.
Yeah, that would be really good. Thank you so much, everybody.
Oh, thank you ever so much. Thanks everybody for coming this evening and joining us. Really appreciate it. And thank you very much, Deepa. And I look forward to seeing all of you very soon.
Thank
Have a good
you. Thanks,
evening.
Susanna. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.